ASMR mic check. I always have to test the mic before I start recording. I look over at my computer to make sure the little waveform is there, and it is. I like to whisper into it because I've got another mic up there, and if that one's plugged in, it'll still pick me up. But if I whisper into the mic ASMR style, then it absolutely shows up on the computer and everything's okay. This video is sponsored by the absolute legends over at NordPass. Create and store your passwords effortlessly. Effortlessly. Am I putting an extra syllable in there? Who knows? Who cares? And securely with the... Why is the word effortlessly so non-effortless to say? What the f***? And securely with the cybersecurity experts from NordVPN. More on them in just a bit. This video is written... Well, what am I doing? This script is green. Why is this green? That's because I went to print out the script this morning. I was like, oh no, I've run out of computer paper again. I get through a lot of computer paper. The stack of Business Blaze scripts grows bigger by the week. And I found this random piece of green paper, and that was all I had, so I printed it, and 2 pieces of white. So I just had to make the text really small, the margins really small, and magically everything fit on. And it's double-sided. What happens here, if you're new, is Danny will write me a script. I will read the script and add my own flavor of bullshit. I'll also read some commercials, that sort of stuff, and then Sam will sprinkle in some fine vintage memes. You will purchase a t-shirt at purchthemerch.co, and that's how it works. This is gonna be a good one. 4 of the world's greatest legends. Absolutely nothing to do. I looked recently, every Monday morning I come up with new topics for Business Place. It's like how I start my Monday. It's like for all of my channels I come up with new topics. And I just had a look at everything that was on the Business Place channel yesterday, and absolutely none of them were to do with business. I think there was one that was vaguely related to commercials, but that was it. I'll never forget the words of advice that a wise old man kindly shared with me many distant moons ago over a roaring fire. We're starting with one of Danny's classic stories. He only made a single fleeting appearance in my life, and I regret that I never asked exactly where he came from, or even his name. It was Jesus, Danny. It was the big JC. He spoke with the wisdom of 1,000 years as he stroked his long white wispy beard. Oh, it's either Father Christmas or God. And seemed to sparkle and dance in the shadow of the flame. Staring into his eyes felt like gazing into the moons of eternity as his words sank into my mind and unlocked a deeper realm of understanding. Actually, I might be painting this story in too many rich colors. Absolutely you are, Danny, but it's okay. That's what everyone comes here for. Everyone's here like, we don't care about facts, fact boy. We just want Danny's life stories and your bullshit. I'm like, all right. He was a stranger in a crowded Rotherham pub, and during a careless moment with my cigarette, I'd accidentally set the bottom of his beard alight. I don't think beards are that flammable. I don't think if I dropped a cigarette in my beard, it's going to catch on fire. I mean, you don't often see smokers who have beards walking around with just half a beard, and it's all black and weird. That rhymes. Although I guess you'd shave it off. I mean, you could singe it. Like, you can singe it for sure, but that's about it. I apologized profusely and put forward my excuse that it was difficult to move about properly because everyone in the pub appeared to be behaving like a massive bellend. Oh no. The old guy didn't seem too bothered. I got the impression that this kind of thing happened to him all the time. He leaned forward until I could smell the cheap whiskey creeping out of his every pore, and he imparted the following counsel. Could you actually smell that the whiskey was cheap? I don't feel like, once your body's processed it, it's just the alcohol that's coming out of your body. It's like, oh yeah, I can smell the cheapness. If you leave the house today and encounter one bellend, then you've been unfortunate enough to encounter one bellend. But if you leave the house today and encounter 20 bellends, then maybe you're the real bellend. I mean, that really speaks to me. I mean, I do come across bellends all the time. Am I the bellend? It's only looking back now that I suddenly realised that he was probably insulting me. What a massive bellend. It does often seem as if we spend far too much of our time discussing the people that annoy us instead of the people that inspire us, and maybe that says more about us than anybody else. I suppose that we're often guilty on Business Blaze of ripping people and companies and ideas to shreds instead of celebrating the achievements of the most truly magnificent people to have ever walked the earth. But to be fair, that's because it usually makes for a funny video. Yeah, I mean, honestly, most of the stuff in the world I am extremely impressed by. I'm like, wow, the future is awesome. Other than this COVID bullshit, it's like we've got all this crazy technology. Everyone's like better off than they've ever been. Poverty is at like epic lows. Racism and all of that stuff is at epic low. I'm not saying that we've solved everything, because obviously there's still tons of this shit everywhere, but it's better than it's ever been, I think. I'm not saying we should rest on our laurels and be like, oh yeah, we've solved racism like David Guetta, or however you say his name, the shout out to his family guy. It's been like a week and I think I mentioned this. These business places never go in order, but there's that David Guetta video where like George Floyd is brutally murdered and David Guetta's like, shout out to his family. It's like, oh David, no!
No! God, please, no! No! No!
So just for a change, let's plough a different furrow for this video to focus on some of history's greatest certified legends who have put the rest of the world to shame for their heroic acts of bravery, compassion, generosity, and badass awesomeness. I'm assuming I'm going to be on this list, Danny. Number 1, Simon. Absolute legend. I don't know why I'm not wearing my certified legend shirt today. That is available on the App Store. On the merch store at purchasethemerch.co. You can also get certified legend stickers, which are very expensive. I'm sorry. I guess I just like money. Apologies if we run out of space before we get to Greta Thunberg, David Hasselhoff, Ronald McDonald, and Jesus H. Christ. Shout out to their families. But we might be able to return to them in one of these 72 inevitable sequels. Yeah, on that Monday morning topic selection, if I'm feeling particularly lazy, I'm like, let's see what worked last week. Oh, this one worked really well. All right, Danny, part 2, part 3, part 7. Mad Jack Churchill. Made a video about this guy before, I know his story. Absolute legend. The wonderful thing about the story of the daring of World War II Commando Jack Churchill is that it feels like the story of a man who fell asleep for 100 years and then suddenly found himself in the thick of the action on a baffling modern battlefield with only antiquated weapons from his own time at his disposal. So this is the plot to Demolition Man. That's obviously not quite what happened, but the heavily decorated British soldier's choice of weapons and kit was a little unusual for the period. He had a sword. We know he had a sword. Spoiler alert. During the Second World War, most of the British Army were mucking about with pistols, rifles, submachine guns, grenades, and maybe even bazookas and flamethrowers if you were in a particularly grumpy mood that day. But Jack Churchill, no relation to Winston, didn't appear to get any of this newfangled nonsense. When he rushed angrily into combat, he did so dressed in a kilt, wielding nothing more than a bow and arrow, a two-handed Scottish broadsword, and a set of bagpipes. That sounds extremely heavy. Like, bows and arrows are really surprisingly heavy. A Scottish broadsword is a massive-ass sword, surprisingly heavy. And bagpipes, I've never held bagpipes. I mean, they're big, and they've got all this weird coming out of them. Probably really heavy. It's no wonder that he bagged the nickname Mad Jack. That was one page because they're so small. I initially wondered if he might have used the bagpipes as some sort of weapon. He could either batter Nazi soldiers over the head with them or just force them into submission with a rousing rendition of Oh Danny Boy. I'm gonna expose my ignorance here, but is Oh Danny Boy that song, I get knocked down, but I get up again, oh Danny Boy? It's probably not that, is it? Because I'm pretty sure that song's called Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba, who, little did I know, are anarchists. Yep, like legitimate politically anarchists. Weird.
Danny Boy! Danny Boy!
But apparently, he just liked to inspire his own men with a couple of little ditties from the bagpipe jukebox, just a few seconds before switching over to his longbow and sword and cutting through the enemy like mustard. I've got a suggestion, Mad Jack. Like, bagpipes suck. I mean, I'm sorry, Scottish people, but it's a really unpleasant sounding musical instrument. Look, there's a great portable musical instrument called a harmonica. Just get one of those. Everyone would prefer it. It's less shit to carry. It doesn't sound like bagpipes. Mad Jack learned how to play the bagpipes during his original stint in the military when he first signed up to the 2nd Battalion of the Manchester Regiment in 1926. Although he served in Burma and India, earning the first of many medals, Jack quit the army in 1936 because he found a soldier's life in peacetime to be just a bit boring. But the good news for Jack is that the Second World War broke out very shortly afterwards, and he was soon called back into battle. Jack always claimed that any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed, which seemed a bit of an outdated motto to be slinging around in the 1940s. If this wasn't him, and maybe there are other guys whose just history has forgotten, who are like this guy, and it'd be like, a man who goes into battle without his sword is improperly dressed. Cue a Nazi opening up a submachine gun on him and just absolutely destroying his body because he's got no armor, he's got no gun, he's got a sword. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, storm a machine gunner's nest? It's like, maybe Mad Jack would survive, but, you know, that's confirmation bias. All the other are dead. But although you might think that Jack was ill-equipped to defend himself from grenade and gunfire of the opposing forces, yes, this Rip Van Winkle of the British Army proved to be a ferocious fighter and was destined to become the only soldier in the entire war credited with killing enemy troops with a bow and arrow. Slashing his way through France and Normandy, Jack's impressive military career would ultimately earn him the Military Cross and Bar and the Distinguished Service Order, along with plenty of other fancy ribbons. One of his most notable victories took place in Italy in 1943 when he was ordered to capture a German observation post just outside the town of Molina. Jack took 2 commandos along with him to capture a post occupied by 42 German soldiers equipped with proper contemporary weapons. These 42 Germans clearly had no chance against a mad bagpiper and his 2 men. They all surrendered and the post was swiftly captured, quite possibly against the wheezing and groaning soundtrack of Amazing Grace. Oh yeah, bagpipes, just stop. So they just surrendered. That just seems a bit unlikely. I mean, there's always embellishment in these stories, right? But there's got to be more to it than that. Come on, Danny. Mad Jack himself was later captured in Yugoslavia, defiantly playing Will Ye Not Come Back Again. Danny's mentioning all these songs that I don't know. I know Amazing Grace, because that's in movies. I have seen movies, some of them, like 3 or 4. I watched a movie, Kung Fu Panda, this weekend past. And I'm like, this is pretty good. And I'm pretty sure that's Jack Black playing the main guy. And it was Jack Black playing the main guy. And then all of the other characters are like these mega turbo A-list actors. And I'm like, what is going on? I mean, I didn't know until the end. So why do you need to cast all of these A-list actors who, I mean, it just seems a bit strange. And I know it's like, oh yeah, they're talented voice artists. Yeah, but so's like, I mean, that's easier, isn't it? As the Germans advanced upon him and lobbed grenades in his general direction, the tune was partly to try and attract help from any of his own soldiers who might have been lurking nearby, but it was to no avail. They'd be like, yeah, dude, I don't want to go near the Germans. I especially don't want to go near that ugly-ass bagpipe music. Oh, all of the dislikes on this video are going to be from Scottish people. Do you like bagpipes? I don't know, I'm sure there's some like English musical instrument that is historical and a piece of shit. And I'd be like the first to say, no, I don't like it. Like steak and kidney pie, it's like this big British thing. Don't like it. Not a big fan. Not a big fan of pies in general, to be honest. Morris dancing, what the is that?
I do not want to taste your cream pie.
Unfortunately for Jack, the Germans assumed that he was related to Winston Churchill, so they monitored him very closely during his stay in Special Camp A at Sachsenhausen concentration camp, a spot reserved for VIP prisoners. Resourceful as ever, Mad Jack still managed to tunnel his way to freedom along with 4 other officers, and although he was recaptured several days later, it's nice to know that he at least got the chance to stretch his legs for a bit. When Mad Jack got out again in 1945, he seemed almost disappointed that the war looked like it was over. He lamented if it wasn't for those damn Yanks, he could have kept the war going another 10 years. I mean, yeah, that'd be great, Mad Jack. You'd have a great time, but millions more people would die, both on the battlefield and in concentration camps. I'm sure you were joking, but that does make you sound like a bit of a bellend. And speaking of bellends, today's... No, I can't transition like that. Although, the fact that we did a sponsor the other day, and I had a video of the best terrorist attacks, and they were like, yeah, green light. All right, thanks, guys. Respect. Following his retirement from military service, Mad Jack Churchill resumed a relatively normal life. He got involved with refurbishing steamboats. That sounds thrilling. He even took up surfing, becoming the first man to ride the River Severn's 5-foot tidal bore. Fascinating. But there remained a mischievous side to Mad Jack. Even in his later years, on his way home from work on the train, his fellow passengers were often taken by surprise when Jack would suddenly stand up and lob his briefcase through the window. Jesus. Oh, I know this story, because it's like he doesn't want to carry it home and it's in his garden, so he just grabs it, like throws out the window, and then when he's home, he just gets it from the garden. Although it may have looked on first glance like it lost the plot after a tough day at the office, Jack was accurately throwing his briefcase out of the speeding train and into his own back garden so that he wouldn't have to carry it home. Mad Jack Churchill died aged 89 in 1996, but it would be nice to think that his great-grandchildren are out there serving their country today, taking on the enemy tanks and surface-to-surface missiles with nothing more than a selfie stick and a karaoke machine. This video is brought to you by the legends at NordPass. Oh, this is a new sponsor. Fine, I love it. I love it, and I always say, a sponsor, a potential sponsor has seen this channel and be like, that man right there, the boy with the blaze, and his crazy shit, he's what we want. He's the one we want to sponsor over all of the far more professional YouTubers and content out there. That guy. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. There's stuff I have to say. I didn't even say, I'm just talking about ads. Let's just get on with it, shall we? Because people are like, Simon, why are the commercials 5 minutes long? So don't watch, all right? Don't watch, you can skip ahead. Just double tap on the right side of the screen. This will probably be about 2 minutes, 3, considering all the f***ing around. I only have to do 60 seconds, I really do. I don't know what's wrong with me. But just keep tapping it, and eventually you'll get there. And use that time you've saved to go get NordPass for f***'s sake. NordPass is a next-generation password manager where cybersecurity meets modern convenience. Oh, I like that. How many times have you struggled to remember the passwords that you only use once or twice per year? Oh my god, well it was an ongoing chore until NordPass came along and was like, guess what? I mean, honestly, what do you do in the past? You just use the same bloody password for everything, which is obviously not a brilliant idea. So, with NordPass, you can save all those random passwords and it will remember them for you. Safely, securely, beautifully. I don't think beautifully is in there, but let's just say that. NordPass is the perfect solution to your password management problems. It stores all your passwords. I said that. It's because I know what it does. It also fills them. You guys know how this works, right? You're on a website, it says, what's your password? And then NordPass is like, there's your password. Done. Simple. But NordPass isn't just a one-trick pony. Oh no, it's not. What else is it? It's got a password health feature to analyze your passwords, and that's just not the ones you're choosing right now. It can go through all of your old passwords and be like, that's a piece of shit. That's a piece of shit. Really? Password 123? Really? Really? It doesn't say that, it just has like this red thing. And then what you do is you change password 123 to actually something useful. And if that's not enough, it's got data breach scanner, a cool NordPass tool. I'll decide if it's called NordPass. Let me decide that. Let's see. That lets you know if your login or credit card information has been leaked somewhere online. Well, that is cool. The other day, I always say the other day, but this is several months ago. I've got, you've got your banking app on your phone, and it's like, someone just, you just spent $1,000. And I was like, what? No, I didn't. So I log in to see what's going on. It's like, your account, we've frozen it, and you can't log in. And I'm like, what the f***? So I contact support, and I'm like, I can't even see if I lost money. And they're like, yeah, it's all good. Here's access to your account. And there was no money missing. So I guess they took care of it. But I'd like to know what had gone on if someone cloned my card. They were just like, everything's fine. What I would have liked is not have that fear when I'm just hanging out at home and it says like someone spent $1,000 and then get locked out for several days. That is alarming. If I had this, they'd be like, look, someone has stolen your credit card information. We're letting you know. And I'll be like, okay, cool. At least I can mentally prepare for the shitstorm. Of course, these are all designed and managed by the same experts who run NordVPN. So you know that they've got a proven track record of internet security. Mwah! Right now, you can take advantage of the NordPass end of winter sale. It snowed like half a foot of snow last night. NordPass, it doesn't feel like the end of winter, to be honest. Although this is probably going out in a couple of weeks. So I'm looking, winter. COVID, I want my life back. Sorry, we're going wild with this. 70% off NordPass, plus an additional month for free at nordpass.com/channel code. I guess that channel code will be Blaze. Thanks for putting that in there. Get 70% off, additional month free at nordpass.com/Blaze. nordpass.com/Blaze. And let's get back to the video. I'm discarding these pages so I don't get confused. Wow, that really flew around. Don't get lost. It's very long. It would be almost criminal. Wait, was there a title at the bottom? Oh, there was. It says Billionaire Bill. Oh, are we talking about Bill Gates? Bill Gates, the absolute legend. So there's going to be people who don't like, what was the dislikes from before? And also the conspiracy people who think Bill Gates is a bad dude when he's actually an absolute fucking legend. It would be almost criminal to make a video on legends without giving at least a brief mention to Bill Gates. Danny, this doesn't look brief if I'm honest. Billionaires often get a bad reputation from the likes of the old bad apple. I mentioned no names apart from maybe that gobshite that is Bill Gates is a shining example of a man who gets his wealth flowing in the right direction. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you about the philanthropic adventures of the co-founder of Microsoft. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has spent a fortune on initiatives and programs around the world which focus on global health, urban poverty, emergency relief, agricultural development, and much more besides. And of course, he's pledged billions of dollars in the fight against COVID-19 virus to help save a largely ungrateful population who accuse him of being responsible for it in the first place. Yeah, I love this. I mean, I don't love this. I just love how people, it's just entertaining. But this is complicated. But I love how I'm entertained by how dumb people are about Bill. So Bill Gates gave this talk, like TED Talk or whatever, or like at some conference or whatever, like 10 years ago. And he was saying like the next thing that's going to kill a lot of people is not a world war, it's a pandemic. And people are like, oh my God, he knew, he did it. And it's like, no, really, no. He's just smarter than you, especially if you believe it's a conspiracy theory. In fact, so far it's been estimated that Bill Gates has given away around $45.5 billion to noble causes. And his 3 kids only stand to inherit a mere $10 million each after he completes his plan of giving away 95% of his total wealth. Bill claims, I definitely think leaving kids massive amount of money is not a favor to them. $10 million each sounds pretty massive to me, but you see the point. And his kids are more than happy with the arrangement. Yeah, I mean, $10 million. It's a lot of money, but it's not wild, especially when you grew up as Bill Gates' kid. Beyond the foundation and his efforts to save the world, there are plenty of other heartwarming stories about Bill. And one of my favorites involves a journal belonging to Leonardo da Vinci. The Codex Leicester was written between 1506 and 1510 and is now one of 30 surviving original journals from the great astronomer and fossil theory. What? Oh, I missed a line. From the great Renaissance thinker and artist. This 72-page handwritten document includes Da Vinci's musings on the movement of water, along with a few ideas on astronomy and fossil theory, all hundreds of years before any of the stuff was widely accepted. The journal went up for auction at Christie's in 1994, and Bill got involved in a bidding war, which would end with him securing ownership of these scribblings for just under $31 million. Holy shit. Adjusting for inflation, that means that the Codex Leicester is the most expensive book or document ever to be sold, some way ahead of the original Magna Carta and a signed copy of The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. Danny, I don't know how much I'm going to value those business play scripts at, but I'm just going to describe them as absolutely priceless. But at any time I have a script where I go like this, someone said, people comment, that script has increased in value. And I'm like, don't be weird. Someone on my subreddit the other day, this is so funny. Reddit.com/r/Simon Whistler. I got like 1.2 thousand subscribers, please. It's embarrassing. Go over there and join the group is called Legendary Legends. Brilliant. Someone was like, are there any like pictures of Simon Whistler's dick online? And I'm like, no, don't be weird. And the guy's like, oh, it's weird to be homophobic, is it? Well, yeah, it is. It's weird to be homosexual, is it? I'm like, no. What is going on, you f***ing twit? But the brilliant thing about this record-breaking purchase is the reason why Bill Gates was so determined to buy it. He didn't just want to squirrel it away in his own private collection, he bought it to share it with the rest of the world. The journal is regularly on display in galleries around the world, but most significantly, the first thing that Bill did after winning the auction was to have the whole notebook digitally scanned and shoved onto a CD-ROM which could be bought for under $30, allowing the rest of the population the chance to peruse the $31 million manuscript. Wait, so he's selling it though? So he'd sell 1 million of those and he makes his money back. I'm not sure how many people were really that interested in reading a 500-year-old thoughts on the movement of water, but it was still a lovely gesture. However, considering that Bill Gates still has a net worth of $122 billion, he still has a long way to go on his mission of getting rid of 95% of his wealth. He could learn a thing or two from Chuck Feeney, the Irish-American who made his fortune from co-founding the Duty Free Shoppers Group in 1960 after launching the Atlantic Philanthropies organization in 1962. Chuck pledged to give away every penny of his fortune. As of 2021, Chuck has just about achieved that goal, now down to his last $2 million. That is impressive, after donating more than $8 billion to education, science, and healthcare. I love it, you legend. He now lives in a rented apartment in San Francisco and carries his belongings around in a plastic bag. He doesn't even own a car, and he wears a $10 watch. I think Chuck Feeney thoroughly deserves to blow that last $2 million on the wildest party that San Francisco's ever seen, and maybe treat himself to a nice man bag.
It's not a man purse, it's called a satchel. Indiana Jones wears one.
The proper pirate. We've all lapped up the swashbuckling tales of the most famous pirates in history, such as Blackbeard, Captain Jack Sparrow. That's not a real captain. Captain Hook and Captain Pugwash. Danny, these are all fake! Except for Blackbeard, he's real. My knowledge of piracy is not that great. Honestly, I don't find it that interesting. But not enough is said about the most successful pirate that ever sailed the seven seas, and this one wasn't a grizzly old hairy bloke with a parrot and a peg leg. She was an Asian woman called Ching Shi. I know the story as well because I made a video about her. This is why no one likes me anymore. It's like you'd just be hanging out in the pub like pre-COVID. Like, oh yeah, no. And someone will say something, be like, well actually, as a matter of fact, I made a video about that, and that's not entirely true. And people are like, shut the f*** up, Whistler. Piracy could generally be considered a pretty hazardous occupation, which usually ends up with the tightening of a rope, military slaughter by rival pirates, or even getting eaten by a crocodile. But Ching Shi was one of the very few pirates to sail away to a happy ending with a generous pension plan. Very little is known about Ching's early years. She was born in 1775 in the Chinese province of Guangdong during the Qing dynasty, which is always confusing because it's spelled with a Q with no U after it. Those China maniac. QI? What? By the turn of the 19th century, she was working as a prostitute in the floating brothel in Canton, also known as flower boats. These floating brothels would sail along the nearby coast with customers on board the vessel. And it was during this time that she encountered a notorious pirate by the name of Zheng Yi, the commander of the infamous Red Flag Fleet, who had roots which could be traced back to the Ming Dynasty. Zheng Yi was clearly a happy customer and ended up taking Ching Shi to be his bride. It's unclear whether Ching Shi was captured and forced against her will to tie the knot with Zheng Yi, or whether she willingly agreed to join him on his piratical adventures, but it certainly seems like she was quick to draw up a few terms and conditions once she had signed up with the Red Flag Fleet. Zheng Yi ended up granting his new bride a 50% share of his plunderings and partial control over his growing pirate empire. That is some top-notch negotiation. However, Zheng Yi died in 1807 and his widow didn't waste any time taking the reins of the thriving business. In some accounts of the story, Zheng Yi died during a devastating typhoon. I'm gonna bet the other account is she killed him. While others suggest that he may have accidentally fallen overboard on his own ship. Oh. I kind of expected her to, knock him off and take over his empire. It's possible that he might have just been given an encouraging nudge by someone who stood to gain from his unfortunate demise. Who could that be? Maybe it's Ching Shi! Or Ching Shi. I got her name right. Well done, Simon, you're the hero we need. But whatever the circumstances, Ching Shi was now the head of one of Asia's largest pirate crews, and the fleet would only grow during her reign. At one point, she personally commanded over 300 ships manned by 40,000 pirates, and also outsourced the management of another 1,500 vessels containing a total crew of 180,000. That is a giant, giant empire. Compare that with the bumbling amateur Blackbeard who at his peak only had 300 ships to his lousy name. Blackbeard. Fucking weak-ass pirate bitch. Ching Shi now had control over the seas of South China and embarked on a campaign of looting and pillaging while introducing a range of strict new pirate rules and regulations which outlawed the raping of female captives and even allowed the ugly ones to go free. You're the hero we need, Ching Shi. Only keep the beautiful women. She was bringing a whole new level of decency and manners to the outdated pirate codes. However, the Chinese government was getting a bit miffed that a female pirate was ruling the waves. Where's our male pirates? Why is it not a man? This stands against everything we believe. And so dispatched a fleet of armadas. How do you have a fleet of armadas? Wouldn't an armada be a fleet? To crush Ching Shi's empire. They were no match for Ching Shi's crew though, and 63 of the government's ships were captured, and many prisoners eventually decided to defect to the pirate crew. The Chinese government was forced into a position where it ended up having to use simple fishing vessels for combat as Ching Shi had destroyed all their fancy ships. Government got his ass beat! The British and the Dutch got involved in the fight to get rid of Ching Shi, but they were sent packing in defeat too. That's hardcore. The British and Dutch, pretty sure they had some big-ass navies in the 1700s. Eventually, the Chinese government pretty much conceded defeat and offered Ching Shi an amnesty. Admittedly, this was a shrewd tactical move on the pirate queen's part. By 1808, the Portuguese navy joined the battle with new superior ships and weapons, and she knew that it was only a matter of time before the game was up. But again, she drove a hard bargain to restore peace to the seas of South China. Despite this only being 3 pages, it does feel epically long, doesn't it? We're 2/3 of the way through, good lord. She only gave up her fleet on the condition that amnesty covered the vast majority of a pirate crew, who would be offered jobs in the armed forces if they fancied it, and they got to keep all of their loot with no questions asked. Tell you what, if I was a rich-ass pirate and they were like, look, after all this pirating and bad you've done, you can keep all your money and join the military. I'd be like, can I just keep all the money? Do I have to join the military? And they'll be like, yeah, you keep all the money, you don't have to join the military. We're just offering you a job if you wanted it. Be like, pass. Pass.
Oh, yeah, no. You know what? No, yeah.
She also insisted on bagging the new title of Lady by Imperial Decree. Or lid. Ching Shi went on to open a new gambling den in Canton, married her old second-in-command, and enjoyed a happy life in retirement before her death at the age of 69. Meanwhile, bumbling Blackbeard, who was overcome by the British Navy, weak-ass bitch, and received 5 musket ball wounds and 20 sword lacerations before dropping dead. Ha! He's the sucker now, Blackbeard. In comparison, he was nothing more than a bilge-sucking, lily-livered, shark-bait, scurvy dog landlubber. Indeed, that was more creative than my weak-ass description of him. Sir Christopher Lee. If I were to review the achievements of Sir Christopher Lee based purely on a glorious cinematic career which spanned the best part of 70 years, his life could already be considered pretty damn legendary. But there was a lot more to Sir Christopher than dressing up as vampires and wizards. Oh no, was he in some sort of wizard thing? Have I seen this? I don't know. He's probably in Lord of the Rings or some bullshit that I hate. And he gave a mysteriously brief insight into his past during a production of what was destined to become one of his very last appearances. The Lord of the Rings trap, of course it was! Why do we always have to talk about Lord of the Rings? It f***ing sucks! That's another group of people that are going to be smashing that dislike button. Good news is, I don't care. Sir Christopher was filming Saruman's Death, in which Wormtongue stabs the naughty wizard in the back and sends him hurtling to his doom at the top of Orthanc Tower. I just already phased out reading that because, like, who cares? Wormtongue.
You ought to see me with a 357 Magnum. I'm awesome.
It was a scene inexplicably cut from the theatrical version of the third film in the trilogy, which is weird, because it's not like they were trying to make those movies f***ing short. Along with the rest of Saruman's scenes, this is why the extended DVD versions are by far the most rewarding way to watch the trilogy as it was originally intended. If you have 11.4 hours to spare, I don't, and I never will. I know how much Simon loves it when we start talking about Lord of the Rings. Anyway, the director, Peter Jackson, sorry, my mistake, was attempting to explain to the actor how he should react when Saruman gets stabbed in the back. Sir Christopher stopped the director in his tracks and asked,
"Have you any idea of what kind of noise happens when somebody's stabbed in the back?" And I said, "Well, because I do."
That's quite cool though. No further questions were asked. Before becoming one of the most celebrated actors to ever grace the silver screen, Sir Christopher Lee served in the Second World War. However, his service didn't always run according to plan, and he had several close brushes with death. Honestly, if you're serving in World War II, death has to kind of be on the plan. I mean, or at least you've got to be aware that it could be on the plan. He originally volunteered for the RAF, but was diagnosed with optic nerve failure and told he would never fly again. He fought in North America, where he managed to... North Africa, sorry, obviously. Where he managed to contract malaria no less than 6 times in the space of a year. Fucking hell, Chris. Sir Chris. During his time with the Gurkhas of the 8th Infantry Division, he was involved in the final assault on Monte Cassino, but was nearly killed when a plane crashed on takeoff, and then he managed to trip over one of the plane's live bombs. Jesus. And he even diced with death during his days off during a period of leave in Naples. He is thought to have had a crack at climbing Mount Vesuvius, which erupted less than 3 days later. But he still managed to see some action when he wasn't getting struck down with malaria or getting blown to bits. Throughout the course of the Second World War, he fought the Nazis. Sorry. He fought the Nazis in North Africa to help retake Sicily, used his charm to prevent mutiny amongst his fellow troops when they started getting a bit down over this whole war thing, and received commendations from the British, Czech, Yugoslavian and Polish governments. Bit of a legend, really, other than his appearance in Lord of the Rings.
So you have chosen death.
But it was Sir Christopher's later assignment to Winston Churchill's Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Is that a thing? That is epic. Which sounds the most intriguing. The details of his secret missions remain classified to this day, but his job description apparently included conducting espionage, sabotage, and reconnaissance in occupied Europe against the Axis powers. Sir Christopher always remained tight-lipped about what exactly he got up to. During one later interview, a journalist pressed Sir Christopher for details on his espionage past. Sir Christopher leaned forward and whispered,
"So you have chosen death."
"Can you give a secret?" The journalist excitedly nodded his head, feeling that he was on the edge of a real scoop. Sir Christopher leaned back and with a smile said, "So can I." Oh, Christopher, you legend! It's believed that Ian Fleming, who is actually the step-cousin of Sir Christopher... Is this step-cousins actually a thing? Oh, I guess I have step-cousins. but I just call them my cousins. It'd be a bit weird to be like step-cousins. Partially based the character of James Bond on him. It's flattering enough to be considered for the role of James Bond, but to actually be the inspiration for James Bond is quite another kettle of wrist-mounted dart guns. Ba-da-bum-bum. Following the war, Sir Christopher Lee turned to acting in 1947 and appeared in the first of the 281 films that would bear his name. Goddamn. Although he might have achieved iconic status playing mummies, Frankenstein's monster, and particularly Dracula in the long-running series of classic Hammer horror films in the 50s through to the 70s, it has to be said that they never really made the most of the actor's talents. In one of his most famous appearances as the titular vampire in 1965's Dracula, Prince of Darkness, he doesn't actually get to say any lines at all. He just sort of hisses and snarls his way through the entire film. He often complained to his regular co-star and friend Peter Cushing that he didn't appear to have much dialogue in the latest film, to which Cushing would reply, "You're lucky, I've read the script." That was Christopher Lee's reaction upon Peter Cushing's joke. However, the actor did appear in a ridiculously long list of other highly acclaimed movies, my favourite of which, and it's Sir Christopher's favourite film too, is the deeply wonderful and deeply disturbing The Wicker Man. Isn't that a movie with Nick Cage? The original 1973 horror classic, not the dreadful 2006 remake with Nicolas Cage, okay? I know that Nicolas Cage is legendary in his own way, he is, but my god, he made some duff films along the way. He's made some terrible films. So many terrible films, but he also redeems himself by making some absolutely incredible movies. And in fact, Sir Christopher Lee even out-Bacons Kevin Bacon. Although everyone talks about the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, it's actually Sir Christopher who holds the official record for being the world's most connected actor, as he can be connected to anyone in Hollywood in an average of 2.5 steps. That's wild. Even in his later years, Sir Christopher was still ripping up the rulebook as he released his first heavy metal album at the age of 88. God damn! And then went on to become the oldest living artist in history to achieve a top 20 hit on the Billboard charts with his jolly festive metal track, Jingle Hell, which he released at the age of 91. Legend. I guess that's what is to be expected. This video is all about legends. It's also worth noting that Sir Christopher Lee spoke 6 languages, was a world champion fencer and opera singer. He was pretty good at golf. Whoa! It's also rumoured that he's the only person in the world to defeat the Dark Lord Siroth on Raid Shadow Legends on his very first go without having to pay for any upgrades. I can believe it. And his personal life was a beautiful triumph too. He married Danish supermodel and painter Birgit Gita Kronke in 1961, a marriage which would last the distance over 54 years until Sir Christopher's death in 2015. But this is one legendary legacy that's much like his most famous, if not best character, will extend far beyond the grave. That was really nice. I never knew Sir Christopher Lee was such an absolute legend. If he was alive today, he would be over at Perch the Merch, as you should be, buying a Certified Legend shirt. PurchatheMerch.co is where you get t-shirts. Commercial over, except for the NordPass bit. There's a NordPass sponsor to this video. They do password management. It's excellent. There's a link below. Thank you for watching. Am I the bellend?